Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Pastor Jeff Waterman.
Good morning, Andy. How are you today?
Excellent. Feeling really good. The sunshine is still up. It's still fall.
It's still fall. Colors are amazing.
Yeah, truly.
And we've had some nice crisp air.
Yeah.
Right? It's been kind of good fall air.
Absolutely. I was able to gather the leaves in the front yard and lost my son in the midst of them.
All right. Did you find him again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He wanted to. Yeah, it was totally just completely covered, and the leaves would rustle or shuffle. And who's in there? What's going on? And he just loved that. So yeah, getting to put the leaves together, and he's like, "Are these leaves dying? Are they?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're actually. That's what happens. The leaves are dying. And why are they dying? You know." So these kind of conversations.
Yeah.
Well, it's because they've fallen off from the branch, or they've separated from the tree, and you get to tie in all these biblical laws of nature.
Sure, yeah.
And that's how I have those discussions.
I am just reminded of Romans 1, creation screams the glory of God.
Yeah.
And you can absolutely, throughout creation, you just see his handiwork. And that's why Paul says this leaves man without excuse. You can't look at this and go, yeah, whatever. You can't.
Right.
So,
that came from an amoeba, from a fish.
Yeah, sure.
Or whatever. Exactly.
Well, this isn't a creation evolution podcast.
Right,
but
exactly.
Someday. We'll get there someday.
Yeah, we'll probably get a question now because of that.
Of course.
Good.
And we would love the question.
Yes.
We would love it.
Mm-hmm.
Ask the question.
Yes. So this is episode 42 of our podcast.
What's significant about 42?
Please tell me. I don't know.
Well, baseball-wise.
Okay. I didn't have a chance with this one. Go ahead.
Well, that's Space Nine. Jackie Robinson. It's his number. First black person to play in Major League Baseball.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Baseball trivia for all those out there.
Or you could go to Acts 2:42, and they committed themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the breaking of bread. So anyway, 42 is kind of cool.
Yes, absolutely. So episode 42. Here we are, and we are speaking about our previous Sunday service. We're overflowing, so this is the Overflow podcast.
Yeah.
And last Sunday, it was November 2nd, and it was a transformative Sunday for our church.
We transformed from one place to another, didn't we?
Yeah, we sure did. That was our first Sunday for those of you who've been watching from outside of our actual physical church body here. We have just made the transition from our previous church location to a new temporary site. And wow, that service actually went smoother than it could have gone.
Yes.
It went very well, actually.
It went really well. Mm-hmm. I was pleasantly surprised by how well it went. Mm-hmm. Not only how well everything worked, but just the number of people. It was standing room only. It was so exciting to have tons of people there showing up for, hey, this is we're excited for the next chapter. So a lot of excitement, a lot of fun, and a lot of good singing, a lot of good prayer.
Yeah.
And so, I thought it went well. And then we had cake. Got to have cake.
It was a celebration, and the excitement was in the air. You mentioned at one point during your sermon, this kind of feels like Christmas.
Yeah.
And it really did.
It did.
There was a lot of just life happening, and people just, what's going on? What's this over here? And just bright and all that. It was really nice.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
And everybody likes the new chairs. Everybody says the chairs are so comfy. I'm a bit concerned.
That's one of those things, you think about why did they have these wooden hard pews in all these old cathedrals?
So they would stay awake. I'm concerned they're going to be too comfy and they'll look out and everybody snoozing away.
Especially as the winter comes and the heat starts pouring in there.
Yeah. We're going to have to jack up the caffeine content in our coffee, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of which, by the way, there were like two main people, and I've got to just give our thanks here because, Jeff, at the beginning of the service, you mentioned thanks to a lot of different people with a lot of different hands into a lot of different areas of the new building in the church. But you were one of those people, and you never called yourself out. So I'm going to call you out, Jeff Waterman, incredible handyman and constructor, building that entire coffee shop space along with Dave Hayes in there. Yeah. You guys did a fantastic job.
Well, if you notice, I didn't call out any staff members because that's kind of our job, right? So I wanted to focus in on the volunteers because you were there hanging speakers and hanging TVs and running cables. So everybody pitched in. Matt Bruner and his team, sorting all the kids' stuff and getting a plan. So yes, the staff was involved, and I was part of that. But the purpose of Sunday was to recognize those people that are volunteers that come and give of their time and get no remuneration for it. And it's a blessing to see how many people picked up the ball, carried it, and made sure we got there. So it was a great day.
Yeah.
Fantastic day.
And really speaking about how God's work, his spiritual work in our lives is transformative of perhaps a self-centeredness or this like selfish ambition nature that we all tend to be, transforming that to being selfless as well as other-centered or other-focused. We really got to see how that came to play within the broad body of Christ that we saw. Like all the different people that had, volunteered positions, they're specialists in different areas, in different fields, and they got to like do that and build a church, and that was the fruit of it. Was this past Sunday?
Absolutely. You had all these different people, some that know how to do networking, and some that know how to do sound, and some that know how to build coffee shops. We all just kind of did it and did our thing, and then all of a sudden, boom, it came together. It was really fun to see it, and fun to celebrate. And we'll be back at it this Sunday. If you're going, where is this at? It's at Little Red Schoolhouse, M59 Hughes Road in Howell, and love to have you. You might have to stand, but we would love to have you.
That's a good problem to have, folks. Yeah, for a little while longer.
For a little while.
We'll figure out our spacing. But awesome stuff. And so, folks, come and visit us, and come to the well that never runs dry. It is we say it new well, same water.
New well, same water.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And speaking of
the
water,
living water, as Jesus calls the Bible.
Right. So, speaking about water, though, you brought in one of these classic hymns. I love this hymn, "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it was written back in 1758, I think, if I remember the date correctly. Around that time, if you go 1757, okay, we get the point. It was a long time ago, right? But, one of the things I love is I say, hey, who knows "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing"? And I was getting people raise their hand and nodding.
Everyone.
Like, even, how much of a staying power does a song have to last, 300, almost pushing 300 years, right? So that's really cool. And when I started quoting the lines, you could see people out there starting to sing it.
Absolutely.
Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. So it's really cool to be able to tie into some of those classic hymns and let them help us understand the truth of Scripture.
It's certainly a testament to great songwriting if you can make your songs theologically weighty, but also enjoyable to sing. That you've done it, Right. And so, yes, that's where you pretty much landed with those two significant lines within that song saying, "Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it." And then also at the end, "Here's my heart, Lord, take and seal it." Yeah. And so we landed in those two different outline areas for this past Sunday. And so let's kind of dive into that a little bit. And within that, the grasp in the context of Exodus 32, which is the golden calf.
Right. And if I think it's fun to look at Scripture and look at Old Testament. And as Paul tells us, hey, all the things that were written before were there to teach us. And James calls the Bible a mirror. It's like someone that reads the Bible and doesn't let it change their life, is like someone that walks away looks at a mirror and
doesn't remember what they look like.
Like. So, there should be parts of us. And I know when I first was reading about the Israelites, my first inclination is always, these people are knuckleheads. Like 40 days later, and you can't remember the whole Red Sea thing. You can't remember what you just went through 40 days ago. Yeah. But then I think back, well, where was 40 days ago? That was in September. What was I doing in September? I don't remember what I was doing in September.
Sure.
Our memories are so short.
Yeah.
And then, they're out there and they're freaking out. But they, on one hand, they're such knuckleheads that they're like, oh, make us a calf. And we think that, but we do the very same thing, right?
Yeah, we do in a certain sense. However, I mean, there is something to be said about following a pillar of fire, and it's moving and you follow it, and it's an angel of the Lord or whatever the case is there, and you're following a cloud and it's leading you different directions, and then you're walking, there's a battle and you're fearful of your entire life, and you're walking through a sea that opens up and you watch it destroy people around you. And like 40 days ago, that didn't happen to me, but I think I would remember that,
Right, but here's the thing. You have the Holy Spirit. You have literally the Spirit of God living
Yeah,
in you
it's
day in
crazy.
and day out, right?
yeah.
So
Absolutely
you don't have
crazy.
to look at a cloud.
Yeah.
The Spirit is here.
Yeah.
And so and God is guiding and protecting and
Right.
revealing himself to us all the time. But like the Israelites, sometimes we focus more on the created thing, what's going on around us in creation, more than the person that stands above and has created that. And that's what they did, right? They're used to their culture that they lived in Egypt was very polytheistic and very idolatrous. Sure, there you go. That's the word. And so every god had some kind of a figure to it. So they're just used to. And a figure being there. And when Aaron says, hey, tomorrow we're going to throw a party for the Lord, he uses Yahweh. It's not like, hey, we're going to throw a party to the calf. He's just saying this calf represents Yahweh, but they're trying to make God in the image that they can manage rather than allowing God to be who he is. And we do the same thing. We like God in a way that we can manage him.
That's so true. You're right. And the whole golden calf thing, this is where I now total tangent here, but I have an issue with the holy cow phrase that people I've heard it my entire life. Holy cow, but I always think, man, our God is not a holy cow, and there's I'm not saying this cow is holy. I don't like that phrase. I don't like holy cow. I'll just be like, oh my goodness. I don't know. But I don't want to give a cow any more leverage than it needs. And they certainly have a lot of leverage in other
Well, it's better
religions.
than other holy words that they stick with it.
Yeah, that's for sure too. Yeah.
Because the other side isn't real holy either.
Yeah, you're right. So that's the thing though, is these Israelites, you said it on Sunday, they're grumble. They're grumblers. And it's so common as well for us. We tend to have this very easy way of celebrating God when he's when we notice his presence in our life. And that's the key word, is notice it, because he's always present, right? It's our awareness of his presence that really changes that mindset shift.
Right.
But we celebrate God easily when things are going very well, when we feel very blessed, when we're coming off of the mountain, or just like they did, as soon as they got over the sea, or through the sea rather, they're singing songs of praise and worship.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then when it gets hard and they're hungry and they're thirsty and it's not looking so good or whatever.
Well, yeah, they're sitting there at the base of the mountain, right? And it says they're looking up and they're seeing the cloud and the fire and all that's going on up there. And it's been 40 days.
Yeah.
Now, interesting, the number 40 does have significance in the Bible. It is seems to be a period of transformation. We see Moses 40 days up on the mountain. You see, spoiler alert, if you're not aware of this, the Israelites don't go, because we're going to look at the whole spying of the land and Caleb and Joshua thing this coming Sunday. And they decide not to go in, and they end up wandering around the desert for
another 40
years. There's that number 40. Noah was in the ark, or it rained for, he was in the ark longer than that, but he reigned for 40 days. And then Jesus was in the wilderness for 40 days. There seems to be this idea that 40 is a number of transformation. And if you talk to people about developing habits or breaking habits, it takes they're telling you it takes about 40 days to do it, about 6 weeks.
Well, there we go. And I'm about to turn 40, as we just talked about in our previous episode.
Yeah, you're going to transform. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Got a third hand coming out of my head. And you're right. Who knows? Maybe God will give me enlightenment. And
there you go.
I don't know. Anyway, that's fun to play with. But yes, so like I was saying, though, these Israelites, and the same for us, right? We're prone to wander. Lord, I feel it. And that's that was your first point in the whole service. And it's easy to wander, and it's especially easy to be distracted and wandering by worldly things.
Exactly. I mean, we look and we poke fun at the Israelites, but they were doing what their culture for basically their entire life taught them to do. And God, he had talked to Moses early on when at the burning bush. And one of the things he says to him in Exodus 6 is, I'm going to take these people. I'm going to make for myself a people. They will be my people, and I will be their God.
Mhm.
So he's got to transform this group of people from basically Egyptian people,
Slaves.
right? Because they're in Egypt, and they pass down stories of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob for sure,
Mhm.
but what they didn't really know is, what all that entailed. And so God's gonna, and God's been silent for a couple hundred years at least, and now cultures influence their life, how they view God, their biblical or lack of biblical view
Right.
of the world around them, because it's just not there. So God has to transform them into his people,
Right.
and he has to really start with Moses, because if you remember, Moses is like, who's sending me? What's the program here? What if they don't believe me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Who are you?
right.
What's your name?
And that's where he gets Yahweh. So then by the time we get here, God has been showing himself, and so they're acknowledging that there's this God. They just don't know how to approach him yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so, all right, make for us a tangible
Something we
thing
can
that
bow down.
represents this.
Yeah.
And so Aaron, I love his response. I
Right.
took the gold, threw it in the fire, and out came a calf. Yeah, whatever, Aaron. Good for you.
Yeah.
But so the culture around them has so influenced the way they approach God, and we can point fingers at it. But I think if we step back a minute, we do the exact same thing. The way our culture operates can so influence the way we view the world,
Mm-hmm.
and how we operate in the world, and how the church operates. We operate more like culture than we do around the God that we're supposed to be worshiping.
Yep. 100%. And there are many biblical passages to tell us to do the opposite of that. Set your mind, like literally mindset, set your mind on things above, not on things below, right? And look ahead, set your eyes on Christ, right? And you're running the marathon. And how do you run a good race? You don't look left and right the whole time. And the same thing with dog training, actually. It's right. You're trying to get the dog to come to you. You say, come here, right? And there you got the food in front of you. But as soon as the dog looks to the side and sees a squirrel, it's not in that race anymore.
Right. Well, it's like the horses, the thoroughbreds, right? They
Blinders.
have, because if they see all the people, they get distracted. So and Paul says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, right?
Yeah.
So it's how we view things, how we see things. What are we focusing on? We talked about that last week. We didn't have a podcast last week, so last week's sermon is fair game, right?
Sure.
Since we already talked about it. But that's the thing, right? Where's our focus? What is it that we're looking toward? What is defining our view of the world? Do we look at God through world lenses, or do we look at the world through God lenses?
Mm-hmm.
And what God's transforming his people to do is see the world through his lenses, not through the lenses of culture.
Yep.
But boy, are we prone to wander into culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, these Israelites, they were born and bred in the culture of the Egyptians with all of their many gods and so on and so forth. And that cultural infusion that happened into those people, the Israelites, it resulted in them having a spiritual confusion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They didn't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
So we pick what's familiar.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So they go right back to it. And so then that spiritual confusion that they had then resulted in their practical corruption. You go, oh, well, I'm confused. I don't really know how to approach this God. I don't know what to do. So practically, how do we worship this God? Oh, let's make a calf. Let's rise up early in the morning, eat and drink, and then go and play.
Yeah. Let's throw a party.
Yeah.
Let's have a calf and throw a party. Okay, sounds good to me.
Right. Yeah. And well, so, I mean, God, obviously, it makes sense for him at this time to create some laws and some rules. Here's how you're going to be my people.
Yeah. That's what Moses was up there doing, is getting,
Literally.
how do you approach me? A God that is above gods, all gods, right? I have had glory over Pharaoh and all of the gods of Egypt. I've displayed my supreme power, my omnipresence. I've displayed all of that. So how do you approach me is what Moses is up there getting, right? It's the next book, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus. That's all the instructions that Moses got.
Right.
Listen, it didn't take God 40 days to write the 10 Commandments. That took about 30 seconds for
Sure,
God, right?
yeah.
It's all the other stuff that all the Levitical work and how you're going to set up the tabernacle and how you're going to do all of that to
Right.
approach a holy God.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to give you that. And he does give them some practical handles. There's altars and there's candles and there's incense burners. He gave them practical handles on their journey towards the Holy of Holies in that space.
Yep. And with that law, or with the Bible, the word that we have being a mirror, right? We learn later on in the New Testament, of course, that these laws weren't ever expected to lead them towards perfect righteousness and holiness, to be set apart, to be godly, to be just like God. It was to show people, as a mirror does, hey, look, you're really flawed. You need to come to me with something needs to happen, right? And that's why Jesus had to be born. And yeah,
and he had to ultimately fulfill the law. Right?
Exactly.
That's why he says, "I came to fulfill it, not to abolish it."
Yeah, so these people, they were corrupted by the culture that they were grown up into and by their misunderstandings of who God was and how to approach him. And this corruption then really led to the consensus of people, the greater people of Israel, leading the day and saying, hey, we want this to happen. And so the guy who was supposed to be the leader in the absence of Moses, which was Aaron, by the way, goes, okay, I'm going to let the consensus, I'm going to let the general public here lead and tell me what to do.
Yeah. What do you want? Oh, you want something? All right, give me your gold. I did read a commentator that had a different spin on Aaron. I don't know that I agree with it, but one of the things he proponed was he felt that what Aaron was doing was tapping into their sense of vanity to kind of get out of this situation. Like, oh, you want a God? Then give up your stuff, right? Give up the gold in what you have. And he didn't, this commentator said, he didn't actually think they would do it. And then they did it, and now he's like forced to do something. I don't know that I buy into that, but it's an interesting perspective, right? Like, like they actually gave up something of tremendous value to make this idol, to participate in this practical corruption, if you will. And Aaron's just doing, if this is what you want, this is what I'll give to you, rather than standing up and saying, no, we serve a different God.
And they didn't have any of those, the rings or the earrings or gold or anything, until it was God that allowed them to have that from the Egyptians giving it to them. And that's how they were plundering the Egyptians as they left. So it's like God gave them all those gifts, and then they go and turn it into some other idolatrous creature to say that that was from this cow.
Well, that's really interesting insight, because don't we do the same thing? Like, think of all the gifts that we have given, whether they're talents that we have, your musical talent, apparently my talent to gab, and other things that we do. Do we use the gifts that God has given us, the resources that God has given us, for our pleasure, for our enjoyment, for what we think is important? Or do we take those resources and we leverage it for God's work, kingdom work, what he would have us use for? Wow, that's a pretty interesting insight right there.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like saying, all right, God, you've given me everything that I am, so then here's my heart, Lord. Take and seal it.
Right.
Yeah, here's my heart. Do with me what you will. And it's going to be better for me, actually.
Help change my heart, transform me so that I seek you more than I seek me.
Yeah.
Right? And that's we go at that point into Exodus 33. In 32, Moses says, I'm going to go back up on the mountain, and I'm going to make atonement for you. See if I can make atonement for your sin, because this has been a great sin. And one of the things we talked about here is that the clarity of promise restores spiritual conviction. You know, Moses goes through this conversation with God where God says, step out of the way, I'm going to wipe all these people out. And Moses just clearly lays out all the promises that God had. And now Moses comes down, and he has anger towards the thing that God was upset about. His anger matches God's at this point. But that anger is also always responded with grace. And look at the grace of Moses. He's mad. I'm going to go up and see if I can make atonement for you. See if I can make this right with the Father. Well, and that's exactly what Jesus does. It's such a picture of what Jesus does for us. That, yes, the great sin that took place is always, from God's perspective, met with grace.
It's beautiful. It really is. And it is interesting how it was God who was angry at first, and Moses was like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait. And then Moses has to see it for himself,
Right.
and then he's angry, right?
Right.
And then he has to go back to God, and it's his heart that is then
Yeah.
changed. So can you actually repeat that phrase that you opened up with just then? The conviction, it ended with
Yeah.
the word
Clarity of promise
clarity of promise
restores spiritual conviction.
restores spiritual conviction. I think that is profound, and I just wanted to make sure that people really grasped that. To understand God's ways, God's will, His character, the promises that He said, the more that can become clear to you, the more that it changes and more that it convicts you of certain things, the more that it transforms you into then being more godly. So it's not it's the works that is the outflow of the change that has happened and the realization of who God is and what He's done.
Yeah, and when Moses then in 33 starts this tent of meeting that he does, and he's going in to meet with the Lord, one of the things he's saying is, "Hey, show me your ways that I might know you." You know, a lot of times we look at the Old Testament, we think that it's, the grumpy old God sitting up going, "Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this," right? We think of the law as the 10 Commandments. That's part of the law. The law is much more broad than that, much more expansive, because it's all about how to live in relationship with God. And the important part to take away is it's always been a relationship. It's always been about relationship. God knows us. Hey, Moses, he calls us by name. I know you. I've seen your plight. I see this happening. And then the best response isn't to just mainly obey. That comes later. We obey because we get to know God and we get to know Him personally, and we get to build this relationship with Him. When I have a relationship with people and that relationship deepens, when I have to make a decision or I have to think about something, I'm always thinking about, well, how will this affect them? How's this going to make them feel? Not because they're lording over me and I'm going to zap you, but because I actually care about them. As I make life decisions each day, each week, each month, with budget, with how I spend money and all of that, I don't just think about myself. I think about Kathy and, all right, how does this affect her? And I go to her and say, well, all right, what do you think? And we talk about it, we process it, because I want to know her more. I want to know what her thoughts are. That's the relationship that Moses is longing for here, not just a list of do's and don'ts, but man, I really want to know you.
Yeah. And that communication, obviously in Exodus 33, when Moses is meeting God in the tent of meeting, that's the part where it says that, that's how God used to meet with Moses as a man speaks with his friend. That's incredible. So Moses was able to do that face to face, literally speaking with God. We have the opportunity for prayer, right? And so we can say that the prayer with God, communication with God, getting to know Him more and Him changing our hearts, where our praying doesn't change God's mind, it changes how we then act. And so it allows us to be other-centered and transform us.
Exactly. And just like we're conversing here, sometimes we think prayer is just coming and giving God our to-do list, right? But sometimes I love Moses's prayer. He's talking to God, and he's talking to God and reminding God of His promises. And in reality, he's reminding himself of His promises.
Yep.
So we were talking about being prone to wander.
Yeah.
Lord, I feel it. So, we all know that last week could have been a fantastic week, and we see God all over the place, and we have this tremendous worship event. And then this week, everything goes sideways. And we look around and go, all right, God, where'd you go, right? And He's like, well, I'm in the same place I was last week.
Yeah.
So how do you get out of that where, all right, God's out to get me, God's out to harm me, God's out to zap me? Well, what you do is you do what Moses did. You go to God in prayer and just start recounting the promises. Just start recounting the promises.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden what happens is God's going to speak to you. I know it sounds weird. Everybody goes, so what? You hear voices in your head? No. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I audibly hear. Like I remember one time I had a truck stuck. I was pulling a jet ski out of the water, and I was using a ramp that wasn't in the best shape, and my truck got stuck. And I literally heard the words, "Call Dave Hazen."
Wow.
So I called Dave Hazen, and he says, "Waterman." I said, "Dave, where are you?" He says, "I'm in your driveway."
Yeah. Wow.
I said, well, can you drive 100 feet over and pull me out? And he said, absolutely.
Wow.
Like,
That's
Dave
crazy.
could have been anywhere.
Anywhere.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, God, what do I do? How do I handle this? Call Dave Hazen. Boom. And he was right there.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have had audible times. One time when one of my kids was moving cross country, I was super concerned about the readiness and all of that and how it would pan out. And I was like, God, what do I do? Do I step in and say, no, you're not doing this? And I heard these words. Do you really think you love him more than I do?
Right.
So sometimes I do hear something, but oftentimes it's not that. It's as I recount the promises, I hear myself speaking back to me going, all right, wait, what God are you, what's the picture you're painting of God right now? The one with the promise?
Yeah.
Or the one or the problem that's facing you? What is it that you're recounting to yourself?
Wow. That's important to have that, the capturing of every thought, the renewing of the mind right there. So perhaps instead of acting quickly and allowing the consensus to change the direction of the day, Aaron could have waited and watched and prayed and then had the Lord take the control of what would happen that day. The same way that we're saying that instead of revving your truck like crazy and driving it through the dirt even more and sinking your boat or whatever, what do I do, God? And boom, there's the voice right there.
Yeah.
So instead of acting quickly, that's what we should be doing.
Yeah. Pause, stop, wait, hold on, pray, get some, and then if you don't know what to do, then just give it a second.
Sure. Yeah.
Or a minute or a day or a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So, we're wrapping up here, but what you talked about a little bit is that obedience as a result, and that leads us towards our next week's sermon, which is that promise requires obedience from us.
Yeah, at some point the Israelites get a choice, and next week they're going to be faced with a choice. Who do you really trust?
Yeah.
And if you trust me, you're going to go do, like Jesus says, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and you don't do what I say, right? They're going to be at the precipice of the promised land, and it's everything that God told them it was going to be. But the situation is way bigger than them. And who are they going to trust? Are they going to trust the God that said, I'm going to do this, and now step out and trust me? Or are you going to trust yourself, what you can see, and stay right where you're at?
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see how you bring that to us all on this coming Sunday. It'll be November 9th, by the way, at our once again, our new location. That's the Little Red Schoolhouse. That's our temporary location right there. So we'll see you guys Sunday morning. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, if you go to our website, I think our new location is mapped there too. So
Good.
we're not giving them the address because I don't remember the address, but it's on our website, thewellami.com.
It's 5202 East Highland Road.
Oh, look at him, 5202. Wow.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's in Howell, by the way.
I know
Michigan.
where it is. I
Yeah.
just don't.
I
I
know
just
you
don't
do.
know what it is.
That's so good. So here we are wrapping up our episode 42. That's an important number. Jackie Robinson right there for
there you
those who are
go.
paying attention. Promise is transformative, and we are looking forward to seeing you guys once again this coming Sunday. It'll be 10 o'clock in our new location, the Well Church. How about that?
Awesome. We'll love to see you this Sunday. Have a great day.
See you guys.